welcome. We are here at the beautiful Kananaskis Lodge in Alberta. My name's Brian. We're at the CDDA convention, and we are here with Gus Minor from Sofvie, and I just want to hand it over to you to allow yourself to introduce yourself and welcome.
Right on. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on the show. And it's been a great experience here at the Lodge, and learning from a lot of the industry experts and diamond drilling. And fundamentally, I've got quite a bit of experience in the mining sector coming out of Sudbury, Ontario. And I did spend 10 years or so working with underground projects, working from right on the jackleg and working my way up to project management and so on. And now, I get to spread the good word with the software that we've produced to help a lot of the conversations, for the most part, that get displaced or communication that breaks down in the field that kind of adds to a little bit of the chaos in the sector. So it's been great to see that, to hear the different perspectives from the groups that are here, and acknowledging also from the safety awards and all the hard work that we're doing collectively in the sector to make sure people go home safely.
And we're going to talk a lot about safety, community, Sofvie specifically. What sort of products, services does Sofvie offer?
Yeah, so Sofvie is a software. So if we bring it down to the branding as well,
sure.
I'm sure you'll appreciate that.
I'm a branding guy, I do.
You're a branding guy, yeah, you'll appreciate that. So we wanted to make sure that we have a brand that people can recognize and name very quickly and easily. So we knew that we wanted one word. And as you know, how do you chase that one word? So ultimately, what we found out is that our goal is to transform information, so that we can analyze information that's coming in and transform it into wisdom, so we can actually help the front line succeed. It's great to have information coming from them. What are you doing with it? How do you feed it back? And how do you keep that momentum moving cyclically? So Sophia is one of the Greek goddesses of wisdom and knowledge, in the mythology. So we took the SOF from that. And SOF also stands for software. And V is life in French. So it's a software that helps absorb information from the field that can then flow into saving lives, by making sure that we stay on top of all of the communication aspects, and then establish that collaborative intelligence, if you will, in the field, and that we can minimize missteps and make sure that people are not only driving to the next level of productivity, but also to make sure that everybody goes home safely every single day, as they should. Sometimes
I see companies, they don't even know the history of their brand. They're unsure of the how it was conceived and the rationale of a brand. And you definitely know the background and the strategy of your brand. So health and wellness, and I mentioned, I might pick up on some key words. And so you mentioned wisdom. So I'd love to talk about wisdom and curiosity and how you convey and how you provide that message, or how you give that message of wisdom to the community or to your company. Big focus today and at the convention overall is health and wellness and mental health, as I said. And we're officially launching Bring It to the Surface. And just wanted to ask, how did you identify Bring It to the Surface as that perfect fit from a community within the mining world?
Yeah, I mean, pretty packed question.
Yeah,
so thanks for putting it all there. But when Louise and I started talking about, when she brought the Bring It to the Surface to my attention, and I said, this is something that we're doing, it resonated so well with what we are doing at Sofvie as a whole, which is to leverage the positive behaviors, leverage the positive acts, leverage the sense of community to have that collaborative spirit in the workplace. Because some of the language that have been exposed to, and some of the different challenges that have been exposed to in the mining sector, most of them came from communication breakdowns. So by having a tool that you can reference in two ways, one is what do I need to do today? How can I avoid any of the pitfalls to make sure that I'm successful today, so we can establish what does that definition of success look like, because it tends to change as you start your day. And what can I do to make sure that everybody now around me is aware of what I'm doing, and I'm aware that what they're doing, and so on. So that's one thing, is just having that awareness and that information to do what needs to be done in an organized fashion, so you can bring that chaos, that chaos level down a bit, because through chaotic behaviors comes animosity, comes disorganization, comes missteps, and then that's where you get a lot of those injuries and accidents that occur in the field. And when you're in your field and you're having the conversations of like, oh, my fucking cross shift, all these things, like that kind of language only perpetuates, that downhill slide. So what we do with our tools is we do two things. We collect as much information as we can directly from the workforce on what's going on directly from the field, so that it's unfiltered, unanalyzed, raw. It is the truth to be told from their point of view, which a lot of times the workforce seems like they feel like they're unheard.
I need to learn more, because how do you obtain that?
Yeah, and then what happens is that by doing that, we also know that we have a lot of experienced personnel leaving the sector. So how is that stuff going to work with you when it's sitting in a box in a sea can somewhere? So by having all this information coming in, you can now have unfiltered raw data that you can do something with it. And then supervisors are able to scale their skills. How do you scale the conversation on paper? How do you scale the conversation verbally? Very, very difficult to do. But by having the right information coming in, where you can analyze what's going on and then offer some key insights for the next shifts, have all of the factual information to pass on, is one of the critical things that we do. And more specifically is, how do we acknowledge each other for the work well done? We all know that we come to work to do good work, and everybody has a certain sense of pride that they bring to the table. Nobody comes to work to just do shitty work. People come to work to do well and earn a paycheck and go back to their homes. And when it starts breaking down, is that you feel like you're alone. You feel that you're unheard. When there is a slight slip up, it doesn't matter if you've done things 100 times the right way. As soon as the one time you slip, that becomes your brand, so to speak, in the workplace, and that has a massive, massive impact on your mental health. And just to give you a story on that one is, like, I've had a lot of that stuff where, one, I came into the mining sector from the IT sector. So I was like, well, what's a computer guy going to show me how to do? I said, well,
hence the software.
Yeah, I said, I still bench 500 pounds. I can still handle these tools, right? And but it was still tough to get over that perception that I'm an IT guy coming into the mining sector and I don't know anything, and so on. So we got through that pretty quickly because I was able to physically push my way through there. But then, you get labeled in that way, and no matter how hard you work to get out of it, or how hard you work to kind of get yourself moving forward and to propel things forward, those labels carry with you, and they weigh on you. Like, they do weigh on you. As much as you want to just say the heck with it and you want to move on, they do weigh on you. And one of the things that I shared in my presentation this week, and one of the things I talked about with Louise and other people, is that one of the last projects that I did underground, I literally left my mind, body, and soul on that project. I was working 18 hours a day, 16, 18 hours a day. It was super long days. Everything I could possibly do to make sure that the project would be successful with my support. And then, it was decided that I was going to part ways with the project. And on the way out, I had some major, major concerns, because my biggest priority is to make sure that people go home safely. And if the procedures or policies don't call for that, I will not stand for it. Like, my biggest priority is making sure that the miner comes out of the mine safely, because you're sleeping on a cell phone under your pillow. You're kind of sleeping with one eye open, one ear open all the time. So it does weigh on you just to have those roles in the management roles, which most of the time, most don't really talk about that. And then to be told that, hey, if you're going to survive in this industry, you need to grow a thicker skin.
I was going to ask those specific, unique challenges in the mining industry, people don't realize how unique those challenges are in the mining world.
Yeah. So, and that's what happens. And as soon as I heard that, and I said, okay, now I understand why alcohol is a big deal. I understand why drugs are a big deal. I understand why people are having to do things to numb what's going through their minds, so that they can go back and try to do the work the next day. And we need to stop that. Like we need to, and that's why Bring It to Service for me was so impactful as a movement, is that we cannot fix what we don't know, right? As a group. And it's not like there's one person that's going to be able to fix any problem, but as a group, you can come up with some pretty cool ideas. So as much as little or as big as the issue might be that you want to bring forward, you have a massive team on the mine site, in the workplace, in the management. You've got a massive team around you that collectively, you put your minds together. At the very least, the burden of holding that information in is lifted. I mean, I've had that happen many times where it seems like I was stewing on things, and the only thing I did was to verbalize what I was thinking to someone else with no action required. I told the person, I said, I need you to do nothing. I just need you to listen to what I'm saying. And I let it out. And immediately a huge burden comes off. Now imagine having to live with that for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, what could be very inconsequential, but from the severity of what's going on, it compounds. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the downsides of it, right? With addiction and stress and people leaving us too early, right? By just saying, you know what, this is it for me, right? So
you previously mentioned that you also have a podcast about change, and it's really difficult to find solutions to help people to change, and so let alone a culture in the field. So do you have, because you were starting to go down a road with providing really great tips and advice. So what are some of your lessons learned, I guess, or advice from your Change It podcast? And I would love you to share some of those tips and learnings.
Yeah, with Change itself, I mean, we were having so many good closed door meetings about how to handle change management, whether it's a policy, procedure, technology implementation. Doesn't matter what it is. Sometimes you're literally just changing straws from plastic to paper, right? You're not killing anyone. However, there's a massive downstream impact, right? So we said, we're having a lot of great conversations. Why don't we just record these? I'm sure others can learn from what we're just talking about. And then we started taking on guests and so on. So what we found is that most of the time, your largest barriers are an assumption. You're assuming that you're your largest barriers, and the barriers that you don't even pay any attention to at all because you think that it's not going to be an issue is actually what's going to be your biggest hurdle. And when we have conversations with leaders where the voluntold program doesn't work so well, as one example, right? It's like, well, you will do what I say and we're changing this way because that's how we're doing it. Otherwise you're fired. Well, there's not a whole lot of successful change that will occur with that kind of cost to the act, right? So we do talk a lot about reinforcing the positive behaviors that we see around us every day, and as a default, those are the ones that are going to be showcased. And then you naturally get yourself into a place from a leadership standpoint and even from a worker standpoint where we know what success looks like. It's been illustrated, it's been commended, it's been awarded, all that stuff. So the things that we're looking at not having could have an opportunity to just naturally dissipate. It does take a lot of leadership support. But it doesn't matter what it is. And for software, so I talk about this all the time with software, we change the location of a button, right? You just change the location because it's seemingly going to be more in a better place, or it's going to be, from a user experience standpoint, it's actually going to be. However, for a new user, absolutely. Right. For an existing user, you just messed up the world, right? And the biggest way to compare that is if you take like an iPhone or a Samsung, like an Android phone. Mm-hmm. You use it for 2 months. Your thumb is programmed. Everything is programmed. You go to Android from iPhone. It works the same way. Just the swipe up does different things. The swipe, it works identical, just in a different format. It's like going from John Deere to Cat kind of thing. The controls are just backwards. they're both very, very functional. They're both very, very well designed. However, when you're flip-flopping between the two, there's a massive change. So we talk a lot about that on our podcast, and we do approach when we go into software implementations or just trying to make some radical change in culture with our clients. We talk about that all the time, where you got to take it a little bit at a time. You can't just be like, today we're going to be awesome at mental health, and then that starts now. It's just not going to be that way. But the same way is that, you're going to get a lot of resistance. So you will have your early adopters, if you will, that'll believe what you believe. And it kind of feels like it's going pretty smooth, but that's a very, very small percentage of the overall scope of people, right? So you got to get to the point where, because of the leading behaviors of that small group, you can start to kind of multiply that occurrence. But it's a very much a push-pull process.
And you mentioned assumptions. So I want to talk more about assumptions, because that is a big barrier and misinterpretation in the communication world, no matter what industry, no matter relationships. And one example that I mentioned in my quick introduction to bring it to the surface was the Brené Brown example, where she gave a great example where husband and wife relationship. And as soon as you assume, because when you live with one another, because we're talking about any individual in any relationship, not just in the field remotely with minors, right? Mental health affects everyone. So the one example she mentioned was related to assumptions. You think you know what your significant other is going to say before they even say it, right? So it goes deeper than just cutting them off or finishing their sentence. But if you're not even in the same room and you're assuming and think you know what that other person is about to say, and then contextually she used the ... in a text message, right? What's that person going to say? And it's usually completely different than what you're thinking that person is going to say. So I love talking about communications. Listen, actively listen, and don't assume you know what's inside that person's head.
Oh, absolutely.
So as I segue back to some the critical importance of bringing it to the surface, and for the audience listening, and the community support with different companies, I know you got involved kind of right off the hop. So what key messages would you say to individuals listening or to other companies within the mining world to advocate their participation in the program and just within the mental health crisis, let's call it?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, for me, what resonates the most is that we're all on this planet for a very, very short amount of time. So at the very least, we should be working together to make it a pleasant experience. Just from a human experience standpoint, we all, we talk about that. We all are born to die, right? Eventually that's where we're going. So why do we have to make it harder on each other? Right? And if something is as simple as saying, hey, how are things going today? Are you ready to kick some ass? And that's all you said. And that enough is a gateway, and it's enough to have that two-way dialogue kind of start. But if you just go wink, wink, you assume that the wink means the same thing to both people. One might be looking for performance, the other one's kind of winking out, right? So that'd be the biggest thing for me is that transparent communication between workers and supervisors and so on, right from the senior leadership, having the ability to truly have that open door policy. And sometimes just realizing that it is simply the act of, like you just put it, just listening. And it may not require any action on your part, but you've actually led the conversation by doing nothing, by just saying, I'm an ear. If you want to let it out.
Once you get them to talk, then just listen.
Absolutely. So this program is very exciting to me, and I think that it's going to have a massive impact on the sector as a whole. Just kind of parting ways with the ego that exist. We can all produce and still have great conversations. We don't have to be rough around the edges, drinking a 12-pack of beer and then just kind of moving on with our day and just grunt our way through the day. Like, we can have some good conversations. And this podcast like this is a great example. Right?
Yeah, well said. We really want to emphasize that key point, right? You don't have to be a rugged, tough individual just to share your thoughts, share your feelings, right? We want to get past that. As we wrap up, just wanted, Gus, we really, really thank you for being here. But any kind of final messages, key thoughts to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that we're doing this from a work-based platform, but we do have to realize that whether people believe that work is life or work is part of your life, or it is, you do spend a significant amount of time of your life at work, especially during your money making years and you're raising your families, and that what happens at work can have a very profound and long lasting impact to your family, and how you live your life with your kids, with your siblings or people around you as a whole. So I do think that it's a very, very good approach to start as a work-based conversation. And if you think about it, as a leader, if you have the ability to make any form of an impact with an individual where they would not only be successful at work, but have a fantastic life with their family at home, I mean, I think that should be rewarding enough for everybody to take part.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. It's so insightful. Want to thank everyone. And to join, to participate, to get involved, we do have a website through the CDDA. So please go to cdda.ca/health and wellness and to learn more and to get involved. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Gus.
No, thank you for having me on.
Thank you.